Now that we've had a chance to look at how to draw angles, and we even looked at angles that went beyond 360 degrees, we are going to look at the idea of a coterminal angle, which is an angle in standard position that has the same terminal side. So an angle of theta is coterminal with angles of theta plus 360 times k. This is the important part, where k is any integer. What does that mean? Well, if we have k is equal to 1, it means add 360 degrees once. If we had k is equal to -1, it means subtract 360 once. And then we can go more than that. If we had k is equal to 2, that means add 360 twice, which would mean 2 loops around before drawing your angle. Or if you're thinking about it in terms of just adding, you could also just add 720. So what we're going to do is some different scenarios of finding coterminal angles. The first one is find one positive and one negative angle that are coterminal with each of the following. So for the positive one, I would just take my original angle and add 360. Get 513. For a negative angle, I'll take my 153 and subtract 360. And a lot of times just doing one of each will get you either of your angles. Sometimes you have to add it a couple times, though, to get it to work. So if I do, for this one, I'm not going to label this positive or negative yet. If I do negative 395 plus 360, I get negative 35. That is still negative. So that's one option for my negative angle. If I want one that's positive, I can take that answer that I just got and add 360 again. So be careful, because sometimes just adding 360 once or subtracting 360 once is not going to be enough to get you your positive or negative. Now, if you didn't notice that was going to happen on the first one and you did your negative first, another option for a negative would be taking your negative 395 and subtracting 360. So that's really, or the top one there. So really, if you had the negative 35 or negative 755, that would make sense for this question. Most likely, a lot of you would get the 325 because you would have had to add 360 twice already to get to that point. If we wanted to list all the angles that are coterminal, this question is really just referring to the definition. Almost asking you to redefine what we were doing. So if you're in degrees, and later we're going to do a different angle measurement situation, we will do 215 plus 360k degrees. You always have to write where k is any integer. And then you would do the same thing for this one. You just take your original angle plus 360k degrees, and then write where k is any integer. K has to be an integer in order for this to be true. If you put in a decimal, then you're not necessarily adding that full 360 degrees. So again, in this, it's really like you're redoing the definition up top. But it's important to understand that this is really an expression that you can plug into to add 360 a bunch of times. You could plug a 3 in for k, and that's adding 360 3 times to see what angles you might get, or go in the negative direction for that. Now, this last set of questions, there's a couple different ways that you can show why or why not. So I'm going to show you one option, but you could come up with some other ones too that would work. If I take my 192, and I see that 12 is smaller, I'm going to subtract 360. I want to see if these are coterminal or not. So if I take 192 and I subtract 360, I get negative 168, which is my first coterminal angle going in that direction. That would work. Since negative 168 does not equal 12, they are not coterminal. That's like kind of option one. A second option would be to do 192 minus 12 and see if you get 360. If you get 180. 180 is nice because it's one of our quadrantal angles, but 180 does not equal 360. And we're looking to get 360, a full 360, so that would also indicate not coterminal. So just two options there. For this one, if I go with my first option and take 326, I notice 686 is higher, so I'm going to add 360 to that. If I add 360, I do get 686. So since those are equal, that means these angles are coterminal. Okay, I'm just going to rewrite that in a sentence. So 326 degrees is coterminal to 686 degrees. And you have two options for how you could find that. If I took 686 and subtracted 326, I would also see that I would get the 360, which would kind of be the second option there.